All right. Hello. Welcome to another show. If you have any comments, questions, please leave them and I'll try to address them at some time. I may or may not notice right away, but I'll try to keep an eye on that as well. So, this time period, I am going to be focusing on developer experience, what the developer experience is like in using new tools that I may use on a future project. So, with that, let's go. So, my name is Jason. I've been doing a few of these shows, just sharing some of my thoughts about the onboarding experience while trying new tools. And the idea is that there are a ton of technologies out there. Um, and very often, if you are in a tech lead position, you may be faced with the challenge of trying to evaluate what tool to use. And the developer experience of what those tools are and how they've been packaged may have a lot to do with how you decide what to use or what not to use. So, with all that in mind, code of conduct, if you do add comments, or if you hear me make a comment that seems disparaging about whatever it is I'm looking at any given time, um, it- we should strive to be kind. That is not the intention. Is not to mock or belittle the amount of hard work that goes into making a really good developer experience. And so, with sort of that growth more oriented mindset, it's really about, hey, this is something that didn't work for me. Maybe this is an area that could be better, or consequently, quite often it is important to recognize, like, oh, this was a really smooth way of explaining how this thing works. It might be a model to use in future projects I work on as well. So the whole idea here, if you haven't watched some of my earlier shows, is really about the time to hello world, right, as a key performance indicator. There was a talk I brought up before, based on sort of this communication strategy that you only have 3 seconds to really get your message, or to get someone's attention, 30 seconds to get your point across. And so trying to apply that to developer tools. Now, some people say, oh, time to hello world has to be 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever. I think a real evaluation, 30 minutes is not an unreasonable amount of time that I'm going to give something a chance. Especially if the fact of the matter is I'm probably looking at it because there already should be a little bit of a benefit of a doubt of whether or not it's worth putting in some investment of time. To give up after 3 minutes just doesn't seem effective to me. And to be able to accomplish a whole lot in 3 minutes just doesn't seem very pragmatic either. So there are two areas to this. You may hear the term friction logging when it comes to developer experience, and whether these are tools for internal teams to be productive. Early in my career, I focused on developer tools. It was CVS, RCS, some of the early version control systems, things like that, that you had to have a really good developer experience. And that's one of the reasons Git has been very popular and sort of stayed on top, was being able to handle some of the problems. So friction logging is really about saying, hey, go through a task, and anything that slows down achieving that goal is friction. Right. So you may still achieve your goal, because that's why we're not talking about a QC. We're not talking about error messages and crashes and things like that. We are talking about things that just slow down progress. And by getting rid of that friction, it actually creates a pleasant experience, which means if you feel more productive when doing development, you'll be able to build more faster, and just be able to solve better problems rather than just getting by with the tools you have. So the other side of this is often taking a look at customer zero, this notion of, hey, if you build a tool, it's really hard to evaluate the developer experience of that tool, and you need to find someone else, either someone external who can really give high quality feedback about what the experience is like trying to actually build with a tool, or finding people across your organization. So all that in mind, one way I really started doing friction logging is through recordings. Even when I recruit participants in things that I've built or work on, it is a recording to say, like, instead of you as a subject, instead of spending time thinking about grabbing screenshots or what the reproduction steps were to report an issue. By just recording the entire experience, it actually, as a byproduct, all of that material is there to be, coded after the fact. So that is why this is a live streaming show. I am just showing, as I am going through and learning something for the first time, what that experience is like for me. And this is much like what I would go back and review and see, hey, what were the first 30 minutes like of someone trying to use something I worked on, and look for areas that could be improved to make the at a frictionless experience in onboarding. With all that in mind, the shows are roughly 3:30 p.m. Pacific, a couple days a week, depending on what my actual work schedule and other commitments are. So I apologize that there is a little bit of erratic scheduling in that regard. But I am streaming to both Twitch and YouTube. And there is a little bit of a makings of a website. You can go to developerxp.com, drop an email. Contact information is there, as well as some of the upcoming topics. So later this week, again, schedule allow, I'll probably be looking at Growth Book. I missed the show Contentful. I ended up getting sick, and so didn't do that one. So I still wanted to onboard with Contentful. And then I have been evaluating productivity tools, and I haven't used tab 9 yet. So I wanted to give that a try and see what the experience was like. So that out of the way, let's go. So I'm gonna need to pull up a few things. And so today, I should have boiled the headline here, but today I'm looking at Supabase. And the reason I'm looking at Supabase is, and hopefully I'm even saying that correctly, is that I've been doing a lot of Svelte development lately as a framework. I find it to be delightful. Everyone's entitled to their opinions, of course, and for certain projects, it may not be right, but I've been using it on a few lately, smaller, especially projects. But in some of the online community forums, I've seen some questions where people have talked about Svelte and SvelteKit and what other tools people are using. And on a couple of occasions, I've heard people saying Supabase, or read, and heard people, strangers on the internet have said Supabase is part of their tech stack. And it's not a tool I've used. It has not been part of my professional experience on any projects I've been working on. So wanted to give it a try. So Supabase. I'll even also say that people have mentioned, the reason I wanted to give that little bit of a preamble is that I'm not even sure what problem it's going to solve for me or how I'm going to use it on a particular project. But first, I want to learn a little bit more about it so that I know, right? Like, it's kind of like saying, hey, here's a saw or a hammer. I may not be making a shelf or a chair or anything right now, but I might want to know how to use that hammer so that when I do have to, I'll be prepared. So, and I think I have seen this, and I think this is actually a relatively interesting tagline in saying that, it is the open source Firebase alternative. I don't have extensive Firebase experience. I've used it a little bit, and certainly it has a lot of popularity. So it's maybe not too surprising that other people are also using Supabase. So I did a Google right off the bat. It was the top link. And there's GitHub, socials and videos and things. I'm not too surprised. This might actually be part of my evaluation. Like, if I'm deciding, hey, should I use Supabase on my next project or not? I am actually kind of tempted to go look at things like this, because I might want to see strangers on the internet who might have an opinion that is valid and can help me understand whether I should just eliminate it right off the bat for one reason or another. I find this interesting. In this article, I share my development experience after using Supabase extensively for months. Okay, so you gave it more than 3 minutes, but but it is an editorial, and that's why I kind of wanted to. And I think this is not a hate rant as far as I can tell, but it might indicate a few of the issues that at least some people have in using it, and then I can decide whether or not those are valid for my use cases or not. Excuse me. That said, this is actually relatively recent, August. There might be some other articles. I can go look at Product Hunt and what people say there. Actually, I might. I'm kind of curious in terms of recency, right? How long have we really been in a Supabase world in terms of what people are using? I also, just very quickly here, I see AppWrite is also um, billing themselves as an alternative to Firebase, which, in both of these cases of Supabase and AppWrite suggests um, that there's something beneficial to using Firebase and that there is a community, but now that community is looking for an alternative. Um, as opposed to just positioning, like if in the same way Firebase might have and saying like, here's what we can do and what's really good about it. So, anyways, I am going to go through the official kind of website instead, and use that as my model. I should also make it a little bit easier to see what I'm looking at. So, um, okay. Build in a weekend, scale to millions. That's not an unreasonable, setting expectations, I think can be really important. So I actually appreciate that there's a little bit of that happening here, saying that, it's not like, oh, in 5 minutes, you're going to build a brand new website and be done. But anyways, open source Firebase alternative. Start your project with a Postgres database, authentication, instant APIs, edge functions, real-time subscriptions, storage, and vector embeddings. Um, all right. I mm, there's a few things there. I suspect I know what's meant, but I will let that go for now. Until I explore a little bit more. So database, every project is a full Postgres database. Um, okay. Authentication, add user signups and logins, securing data with row level security. I appreciate that. To me, when I think about Firebase, I think of I have, like I said, I've used it on maybe one project. Um, and it was it wasn't a decision I had made. It was sort of a decision that was made for me. I just had to do some maintenance on that project. But um user authentication, mobile, real time database, those were a few of the things that really stood out to me as being beneficial. So it'll be interesting to see if Supabase also, but this can be compelling as opposed to using um, um, an auth API provider, the auth zeros, octas, and so on. Could just use Supabase to do that. Edge functions, custom code without deploying or scaling servers. I'll be interested at some point in seeing this. Spend some time working on IoT type of projects as well, and being able to run code on um, microprocessors or microcontrollers deployed out in the field, Wi-Fi connectivity, deploying updates and things like that. I can see is beneficial, but I'm not sure what part Supabase plays in that quite yet. Storage, store, organize, and serve large files. Okay, it's interesting. So this is file storage. Real time. So real time data synchronization, very cool. And then yeah, this is what I was expecting. ML models, vector database, sort of thing. Okay. There's community. Start building in seconds. Um, Unfortunately, I'm only 5 minutes in, so I've already failed at building in seconds. Okay, Stripe subscription starter, all-in-one. So what is it here? Are these projects? I guess I can get rid of that. Like, so if I'm building an AI chat bot, or if I'm already working in the Next.js, Stripe subscriptions. This is interesting. So this to me suggests, hey, if you already have decided that you want to use Stripe for payment processing, for for um, your deployment, and then you need a SQL database as well, for other project data. Um, okay. Um, Instant APIs that do the hard work for you. TypeScript, install from CDN, a CLI, and local emulator. Okay. And create users, real-time subscription. So storage, like creating buckets. Is that, I'm assuming, invoke edge functions. Yeah, I still don't know what entirely is meant with that, but and so on, build your app without leaving the dashboard. Okay. Next thing I also want to double check here, especially since I'm streaming and it becomes very problematic. But pricing, I'd say, if I'm on a development project, when pricing comes into consideration, as it sometimes does, if this is a learning project, or a side project, or something more entrepreneurial, I think, hey, I'm going to build this thing. It's going to be the next amazing project that me and some folks are working in our garage. Many of those cases, pricing becomes suddenly also a consideration when deciding if in a professional setting, I was told to go use this. Presumably, pricing is not a factor. But if I'm doing an evaluation, I can't really do the evaluation. I don't know when, you know, I do have a corporate credit card, but when I was a front end engineer, or a full stack engineer in certain companies, certain roles, I did not have the authority to make purchasing decisions. So, um, but I do see that there is a free tier um, that gives unlimited API requests, OAuth providers, half gig of database, a gig of file storage, bandwidth uploads. Presumably, these are the edge function. Is this? I mean, yeah, I don't know. Serverless, is that what this is supposed to, or functions as a service? Is that the idea here? I don't know. Concurrent real-time connections. It's actually, so this gets quite a bit of mileage during development. So I think is perfectly reasonable. So I'm going to go ahead and click get started, and let's see how far we get. I need my password manager. It's probably going to open up over here. All right, and I'm just getting set up there. Should have done this before, but okay. All right. So this is, again, I tend not to use OAuth providers. I don't know why. It's just not a. Oops. So I want to get started. I guess I got to sign up. And oops. That one did generate a special character for me. All right, I gotta go fix that real quick. There we go. I will probably have to verify email and stuff as well. So just give me pull up a new browser. Okay, check email to confirm. So I will do that off screen. Sorry. Anyways, let's see, confirm email address. I'll bring it back. Okay, so I am logged in. So it's kind of interesting in a way. So from a developer experience point of view, one of the things I'm seeing right off the bat is not a whole lot, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So clearly I need to start by building a new project, but there's not a whole lot else here. And maybe that simplicity makes it more straightforward, I guess. All right, so create a new organization. This is your organization within Supabase. Developer XP, okay. Type of organization, educational, pricing plan, free. Okay. I think that seems right. All right, it's working on something. Okay, so now I have an organization. Now I need a project. So I tried to put in the, developerxp.com, but I guess I'll just put in developer XP. Periods are not allowed in the name, apparently. And then a database password. Okay. So, I mean, I think there's one takeaway right off the bat, and I guess I saw this from the main website, but the need for a relational database would be a big selling point of Supabase. I mean, it is base in the name, so database makes sense, I guess, as opposed to sort of your NoSQL document storage, things like that, or a graph database or any other storage format. So it does seem right off the bat, user management and relational database are key components here. So, okay. And I do need to generate a database password for my project as well. Okay, and I don't want to use the same password as the account, so here I am going to generate another one. Oh my goodness. All right. Where's base? Generating a new password as well. Okay. Generated a password, saved it. All right. Yeah, so let's go West US. Although it is interesting to see, I said there are multiple regions, which is good. No, that does make me wonder. I mean, replication strategies and things like that, but I'm not anywhere near needing to think about that. So, build via okay, create new project. All right, so it's thinking about something. Let's not save that. Okay, so here we are again. So, so this is my org. And then this is the project within the org. and then it can be branched, I guess. Um, so this is a waitlist. Yeah. So I mean, this is another factor. It can be really tricky to roll out new features. I mean, this is clearly. Oh man, I did not mean to go there. I don't know what. But anyways, I'm gonna ignore that because getting started, that's not something I need at this point. Your project has been deployed on its own instance with its own API all set up and ready to use. Get started by building out your database. Start building your app by creating tables and inserting data. Table editor makes Postgres as easy to use as a spreadsheet. Um, okay. Um, so maybe. Do I want to start? I kind of was thinking I might wanted to start with the user management side of things, but yeah, let's go ahead and explore auth real quick. But want to make sure I see a little bit. Okay, so when I come back to this dashboard, I see the project that I just created, so I can get back to where I was. That's good. Um, Access tokens. I haven't looked at the docs yet. I do want to take a look at that. So they do have it organized at supabase.com docs. There is a getting started. Um, I like what they've done here right off the bat. Um, it, you know, it- there's not necessarily a jump into code right off the bat here in this getting started area, but it does give me, some important information. So, like, if I come back here, okay, here are the products, client libraries, my migration. If I'm already on another provider, that is all useful. But in particular here, it's the what I was going to say is, I need to know what the features are because I'm still getting oriented, right? So I'm appreciative of some context being given there around what the features are, but also the architecture. And so I think this is actually what I'm most excited about is to just say, okay, let me take a look at what is the architecture of this whole thing. Help me get oriented and get a frame of reference. Supabase is open source. We choose open source tools which are scalable and make them simple to use. It's not a one-to-one mapping of Firebase. I don't know how it's kind of an interesting that Firebase just is used throughout. Um, as opposed to kind of standing as like, hey, this is what we are. It's a here's how we compare to Firebase. And the reason I said is because, again, having not used Firebase extensively, there might be certain assumptions about what I know or don't know about Firebase. So anyways, building many of the features, you know technology choices are different. Everything is open source. Support existing tools rather than developing from scratch. Postgres rather than NoSQL store. Um, okay, so maybe it's I guess it's that notion of a pitch of a movie, right? It's like X but with Y. So here it almost makes it sound like, hey, it's like Firebase except open source and a relational database. But I guess it's just I might be like, hey, is this it's relational database as a service? Um, that feels just as compelling as opposed to Firebase. Um, but again, that's just I guess knowing which community they're going after. But anyways, making Postgres easy to use doesn't mean you have to use all of it. Um, it has been a while since I've done much with Postgres. I think most of my recent projects have been more document oriented as opposed to relational in nature. Um, haven't had necessarily a need for transactions and things like that. And that's just as my role has changed over years. Um, but that doesn't mean some future project I may not. But okay. Each Supabase project consists of several tools. Kong, go true, Postgres, real-time storage, PG meta functions, PostgreSQL. So some of these I don't know. Um, so I feel like this architecture may not necessarily be helping me um, yet. Okay. Okay. Just making Postgres easy to use. It seems like a good thing. Um, I'm trying to remember when I did some Postgres. I seem to remember standing up a like a PHP web app. Um, or no, that was the MySQL one. Anyways, let's see. Studio, open source dashboard, Go True, a JWT based API for managing users and issuing access tokens. Yeah, this is something I I'm actually interested quite a bit in exploring a little bit more. I'm probably not going to do it during this time as I'm getting oriented, but um, this is something I would find valuable in that. Obviously, a lot of services, especially developer-facing tools, need to provide the ability to generate tokens, not just a username password, but access tokens and deal with it. So if they've handled that in a very elegant way, that can be very compelling and valuable, even if I'm not building a huge relational database based application. Um, I could still imagine wanting to have that available in certain cases, but really the access tokens and user management can be really helpful, especially since I think maybe one of the projects I'm planning does have a lot more user base data. So, um, so something like the auth zeros and similar solutions, which may provide a certain amount. I'm not going to build my entire application there. I just want so um, so if I'm going to have more user facing data and tracking, then the relational database may actually be valuable. So I might end up using this more than I initially thought I would have. Yeah, okay. Um, Standalone web server turns the database into a RESTful API and a GraphQL extension. That's nice. Real-time API, a WebSocket, um, and event messaging, presumably. Storage for files, important, or can be important. I don't think planning any like file uploads, but um, yeah, okay, here we are again. A modern runtime for JavaScript and TypeScript. Didn't know. I still don't know what we're doing with this one. I apologize. If you're watching this and you think I'm an idiot, maybe it's true, but I don't know much about Deno or what this is trying to solve for yet. Um, Managing the database itself, getting the list of table names, roles, run queries. Okay. The API gateway on top of Nginx. Okay. Everything works in isolation, integrated, extensible, portable. Okay. I do appreciate what I saw here, and in terms of I feel very comfortable. I think in terms of understanding what is being made available. Um, I feel like it was very clearly explained. For what it's worth. Even with a couple of those, like, oh, it's like Firebase. When I don't know a whole lot about Firebase either, so that doesn't help me per se. Um, I think it does, and so there are, this is worth noting. So, changing track just a little bit. Okay, so there's I could build web app or learn how to create a Supabase project, add some sample data to your database, and query the data from a SvelteKit app. Um, this sounds great. How is that different than the web app tutorial? Build a user management app with SvelteKit. Okay, this is really excellent. Um, and I think this is speaking to another area of the developer experience, and it's a tricky one. But if there might be a tutorial that closely resembles the basic building blocks of what someone wants, especially early in a project, then that is super, super valuable. Now, the fact that I'm looking at Supabase on this project is probably it's reasonable to assume something different than maybe I would see with other like software as a service or API that are out there. In that, if I'm looking for us, like Contentful, I mentioned, right? Like if I'm looking for a content API, I may or may not have already started my project and made other decisions. If I'm looking at a relational database, that might feel like a very fundamental component to any project, which probably means a lot of these quick starts and tutorials can assume they would be used a lot more because I probably don't have a lot of legacy to deal with. And I am working on a more greenfield like project. I did see on that homepage some migration guides, so it may be the case. Oh, already have, and I do have a project on Firebase. I could go and take a look at that and be like, hey, maybe the pricing is not right. I need to migrate for one reason or another. I'm going to move over to Supabase, in which case I have to rip out and move things over. And so, in a scenario like that, this tutorial may not be particularly helpful to me. Um, because at that point I'm doing more of a migration. But this seems like it is set up like a here. Let me explain the various tools while building something in practice. So I think this is the direction I'm going to go. So I'm actually going to start doing this. I'll let the camera roll for a little bit longer as I go through this tutorial and just try it out and see how far I get. Um, and then they got mobile as well. But I think I'm going to do the quick start, and we'll see how far we get and see how it goes. So, learn how to create a Supabase project, add some sample data, and query it. Set up a Supabase project with sample data. I already did that. After project is ready, create a table using the SQL editor and the dashboard. Okay, so let's do that. I might go ahead and split two browsers, one on the right. No, actually, I should move them opposite directions. I'm going to put the instructions on the right, and what I'm working on the left, I may have to adjust the size a little bit. But maybe I'll go ahead and half screen it. Okay. Create a table. So I'm out here. So that was what it was going to suggest, right? Wait, no, that's SQL editor, table editor, right? Well, I'll go ahead and copy this. Use the following SQL statement to create a countries table. Um, well, actually, before I do that, I need to create a different project. So let's do a new project here just for, let's just call this quick start. Um, right, I guess I will use the same password I used on, well, I shouldn't use the same one. Let me get a different one. Okay. All right, I'll do the same region. Yeah, I don't want to do this in an actual project. Okay, so we created a new database, set that up. Oh wait, now we are provisioning the database and API endpoint, so it may take a few minutes. Um, um, all right, well, while we're waiting for that, I'm going to get my VS Code ready here in a moment. Okay. All right. Welcome to your new project. So I can go to the SQL editor using the SQL editor. Okay. And then I'm going to copy this. And so create a table. Primary key is the ID. And then each country has a name. And so I can insert United States, Canada, Mexico. Okay. That seems straightforward. I can run it. Success. All right. Yeah, so there's no additional explanation of what's going on here. And, I think it's a little bit of a challenge from an information standpoint where do you want to keep it to just the facts, like follow these instructions in a quick start? That probably makes sense. But then I think on the other side, then it becomes did I understand what I was doing or not? And that's a delicate balance. Here, it's definitely a little bit more to stick to the facts. For my level of experience, I think that's actually okay. Just because um, I feel comfortable with that, having some background in actually, administering my own Postgres on a server. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create my app, my Svelte app. The command that they suggested seems sensible. Create a SvelteKit app using npm create. Makes sense. I'm going to be prompted for some questions. Yes, it's okay to proceed. Let's choose. Yeah, there's no direction here. I'm guessing the skeleton project is fine. TypeScript is fine. I'm not going to add anything else. Okay, done. All right. Install the client library. So npm install Supabase.js. Okay. Okay. Create a directory. Source lib's already there, but create a file called Supabase client and add the following code. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so go ahead and add a file here, Supabase client. All right. And so now I need to bring in environment variables. Um, I always feel bad that I forget how to do basic things without reading my notes. Um, I guess some people are like that too, right? I don't have to go to Stack Overflow, but I have my own note of how I have done it on a previous project, and I just go look at that project, basically, right? Um, okay, so um, I do, so basically what I'm looking to do right now is set up an env file, and then pull in these project and anon key that way. Um, so I do have to figure out where these are. I mean, so I don't know how much of that, the project URL does not seem to be something that would be secret. Um, so maybe I won't bother with the end file for now. And then API secure behind an API gateway, which requires an API key for every request. Okay. Well, um, a few of the characters now. Sorry. Um, have to take a peek. I assume I can rotate and things like that. I guess you can always delete a project, but that feels rather heavy-handed as opposed to. But anyways, okay. So we went ahead and did that. Query data from the app. Um, and I think that's the thing. So source lib, right? Like those variables are there. I forget what SvelteKit does. On a server, page load data. It would be running server side as opposed to client side. But something just in the lib like this, I guess it depends on where it's being pulled in. But so here they're saying, let's use the load method with this library. That seems reasonable. Okay, so let's come back over here and we'll add a new file here. Is that what they, yeah, okay. And then, okay, so we're going to bring in that client library and then we're going to load the countries and then, so it's just a select. So is that without any parameters? I'm guessing that is just doing a select star, but I could maybe provide my own query to it. Maybe. All right, but let's see. We're going to need to be able to display this. And so, oops, I'll go ahead and delete that. Okay, we'll pull in the data. I don't know if you haven't used SvelteKit or Svelte before. This may or may not be familiar to you, but okay. And then run dev. Well, there you go. I don't know why I used that browser as opposed to here. I think that qualifies as hello world. So like I could, just for giggles, I can come back here and add another country, right? Just to prove. Um, what was there again? United States, Canada, Mexico, um, France. This might also be an opportunity if I come and look at my table editor. I don't want to create a new table. I just want to look at this one. But if I come over here, there's France. Perfect. So that suggests to me everything's wired up the way it needs to be. I will definitely say that that was a quick start. I think everything in the directions was accurate and worked. It gave me a user interface that I didn't have to build, but something I can use to manipulate the data. And then on the flip side, demonstrated using my framework. Not, I didn't have to go and say, oh, you're planning on using this felt on your next project. Sorry, you have to use React if you want to use us. No, it actually gave me that flexibility. The documentation was very clear, and the sample code was pretty concise and worked. And that's that. I think, like in this scenario, I do want to go, and I mean, I know there's a server there, but I probably want to pull the 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 key and project URL out into and variables and stuff like that. So in a sense, maybe that quick start did gloss over some of the security side of things. Um, but I mean, that's fine. I mean, I've unfortunately had to also worked on building tutorials that tried to explain the security side of things because you wanted to prevent developers or the audience from forgetting to do that. So I guess that would be the only thing is here toward the end, it could be some suggestions of, okay, now that you've done this, here are the next things, securing this app and, therefore go read this, this for best practices. Oh, now you want to add user management. Now go read this one and get some best practices there. But all said and done, I'm happy with what that experience was like. I think that was a really good example of not having a lot of friction, getting a very positive reaction from being able to follow the steps and everything working. A reasonable example can go off and now work on what my actual problem set is. The overview of getting started with features and architecture, super appreciate that approach. So yeah, kudos on all the folks who probably have worked on this and made a really good experience. So thanks. That's it for today then. I'm going to continue using Supabase. Probably going to go through that user authentication system as well and just see how that feels. And then continue to see if I can in a weekend make my project. So anyways, thanks for tuning in. I hope some of that was useful or interesting if you haven't tried Supabase before. But now I can understand why a lot of people were commenting that they've incorporated it into their tech stack. So, all right. Thanks. Have a good rest of your holidays.